Hey, welcome back to day 7 of the Quantum Leap experiment. I can't actually believe it's day 7 because, well, partly because I wrote that yesterday was day 5, but it was actually day 6. So I'm proud of myself for getting to a week. Let's be honest. I've had the resistance and we've managed to overcome it, and very proud of myself. We'll see. Will I do tomorrow? We'll take it one day at a time. So I did say up until the solstice. So tomorrow is the solstice. So probably I should be there tomorrow. So today we want to talk about opening your gifts, and a lot of us have repressed gifts and talents, either that we have maybe had in childhood and they have been criticised or judged and we've suppressed them. Perhaps we're even suppressed from a past life or through our lineage. Sometimes you might just have no idea it's within you, and it might be time to open your gifts and wake up to them. So I've got a couple of stories about things that I've done, and I've woken gifts, but I want to read actually, and we've been loosely following these Price Pritchard pieces, and he has got a couple of really beautiful words about opening your gifts that I actually would love to read out. Normally I just do this without looking at things, but I wanted to just read a little of them. So let me see. So when talking about gifts, claim them and you create them. Reach for them and they materialize. Use them and they will grow to serve you still better. The unused potential hides within, just waiting to play a role in your quantum leap. When you make a quantum leap, you find many new things about yourself. It's a fascinating experience in self-discovery. A transformation occurs, a metamorphosis. And then in his other little book, it says, the secret is to go ahead and make demands on yourself and just watch how the necessary resources surface. You will rise to the occasion. Circumstances will call forth stuff inside of you that you seldom use or that you didn't even know was there. So I really like that. And then let me see, is there another little piece? So it says, simply do what you need to do, even if it's not what you would normally do or not what you think you do best. The odds are you'll do it good enough. And then it says, start using a muscle, any muscle, and watch it develop. Remember, doing the right things, you don't have to do them flawlessly to make a quantum leap. And on the flip side, I'll just give you this last piece. It says, are there things you need to stop doing even though you know that you do them really well? If you want to make a quantum leap, what do you need to stop doing as well? So these are going to be the sort of key themes we're going to look at today. And just at the bottom it says, talents have a way of coming when they're called. Call out a few more of yours. So that is what we're going to dive into today. So maybe we'll start for a second with the piece that you might have to stop doing, right? So this comes up a lot in our online business world when you're trying to grow and you're also trying to do everything and you just don't have the time or the space, even if you think nobody else can do it better than you, right? You are the one and only authority on exactly what you want, I suppose, right? And over the years, I've worked with various different virtual assistants, online business managers, team members, and of course I'm the only one that I really know what I want. But when, and you can't expect somebody to jump in and immediately know exactly what's going on in your head and what you want in your brain, right? So there is always a bit of friction when you are doing handovers, but the key is to do some handover before you are so busy that you don't have time to do the handover. Right? And you've got to train people to know what it is that you want, and that takes some give and take. And like yesterday, or the day before, we talked about seeking failure and allowing a space for failure within your organization, because it creates a sense of security. So if you don't allow a team member to ever make a mistake, but the only part of the problem is how you've explained it to them, and then through their processing and filters, they've come up with what they thought you meant and you meant something else, right? It just takes a bit of time to you know, work those kinks out. But it might be, that might be what your next quantum leap is bringing somebody on and not doing everything yourself, right? It also comes from, I actually did a really good podcast episode, and this was my client's issue. It was an Akashic Records case study. I will link that one below because it goes into this more if that's what you want to do, because she kept accidentally hiring the wrong people that were actually incapable of fulfilling what she wanted. But there was a very deep underlying reason for that and fear. It wasn't because she didn't want to grow her business, but there was some deeper subconscious things going on, and we unlocked that. So I will link that one below once I'm finished. Today will be a lot shorter than yesterday. I hit the hour yesterday, but I had a lot to share, and I hope you got something from it if you watched it. And I appreciate you all for being here and for tuning in. All right, so these gifts that we have suppressed, pushed away, not wanted to claim, or we've got fears coming up about what will people think, will I be judged? I have a lot of clients who, for instance, might have some spiritual gifts and they want to maybe incorporate that into their business, but they haven't actually come out as being spiritual to their families, to their friends, and they're terrified of incorporating any of that into their business, for example. They're worried about backlash from people, what people will think, judge, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that can be a very real fear. And I definitely had my spiritual gifts suppressed quite early on. I had some, I won't go into the full details, but I had some experience with some beings, let's say, when I was about 14, I think. And it happened, it was a whole weekend of just mad stuff. And my mother actually basically frog marched me down to the doctors and said, my daughter's losing her mind, do something, help me, like kind of wanting me sectioned. And the doctor sort of looked at me and went, you look okay, are you okay, are you mad? And I went, nope. And that was really the end of it. I did some deeper digging later on, and in another past life my mother had me sectioned. But anyway, we digress. We didn't make it there this lifetime, but they do think I am utterly bonkers for some of my beliefs. But I've had to accept that they will never understand, they will never accept what I do. They just don't get it, and that's okay, right? So, but really that's about owning it and claiming what I know to be true for myself and believe, and be okay with people not getting it, and being okay with the judgment, and being okay with all that stuff. But it's taken a while to get there, let me tell you. And then again, in the past life stuff, one of my first or sort of second or third sort of ever spiritual experiences / healings, I was working with a past life regressionist. As you do, just jump in there, why don't you, Joe? And he had me working through some past lives, and in those past lives I had deeply suppressed my spiritual gifts after having things happen in those lifetimes that I had felt that I couldn't control, and it had like negatively affected my loved ones in those lifetimes. One was being persecuted for being a witch, another being a medicine man and losing my tribe. Again, these are stories I've gone into in my podcast, so I won't get into them here. But I'll see if I can find the episode I spoke about all that stuff and link it below if I can find which one it was. But I'm losing track of what is in which episode. So yeah, there are different various ways that you might have suppressed your gifts, whether, again, past life, current life, or whatever. So part of my journey has been reclaiming those and reclaiming my power and reclaiming my truth and those gifts as well. So it's not necessarily always been an easy path, but it is more of a remembering than a learning. And I have found that when I have I went through the process of learning to become an Akashic Records healer and teacher, and in that process very deeply connected with my psychic and intuitive gifts, and I've done, you know, lots and lots of different journeys and whatnot and medicines, and really opened up my third eye and my ability to connect and channel information, which has been really a cool journey. And through the Akashic Records, I've been able to teach other people how to do that. And that's been one of the beautiful gifts of my journey, is again helping other people remember rather than learn. And a whole part of our first, say, module 1 of the Akashic Records training is all about people's fear and their questioning and trusting the information and trusting themselves and trusting what comes through, and the fear of opening up these things and opening up their gifts and things like that. So we work through a ton of that. Anyway, we're not really what I wanted to focus on today, but there are ways. I believe we're all intuitive. You know, some of us have more easy access to it. Some of us have, I suppose, a more natural gift, or we feel like we've been born with it. But I do believe everyone, to some extent, can access their Akashic Records. It is determined a little bit, I believe, on the amount of inner work you've done. Being the sort of higher you can raise your vibration, the more information you can access from these realms, and the more likely you are to trust the information and then stay at it. But one of the ways I opened up my gifts in that Akashic Records department was when I first learned back in 2016. One of the things they tell you is that you don't charge for your you don't charge for a reading for the first 30 days. And on Facebook, here on this page, I put a post, you could probably find it if you went way back, saying, I'm learning this thing, I can't charge for it, I'm going to do some free sessions this month. And it popped off, it went bananas. And it ended up opening up another approximately 30 spaces. And I did 60 free readings in about 30 days. It was bananas. It was too much in hindsight. I don't recommend that. I really fried myself because I didn't have the proper, I was such a newbie while the information was coming through really strongly, and that was really my gift in it, was allowing my gifts to really be cemented and to trust myself. I was getting on calls and I didn't know who they were, I couldn't see them, and I just could give them this information, and I was like, where is this all coming from? So it's pretty magical for me, but I really did overdo it because I didn't have the energy management practices to really manage myself and the energy coming through and my body and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a process. I don't suggest you go and do a bunch of free readings just to see if you've got a gift, but not that many anyway. So anyway, we're sort of digressing, but that I do believe that we all have different things, right? It might be a musical talent, you might be able to sing, maybe you're an artist. Again, art was something I dropped after school, and I've picked up in the last few years, and I'm enjoying it, right? It's back to baby steps, and I'm okay, and I'm, you know, taking some lessons and stuff. And what came up for me was the perfectionist thing, right? I was like, I thought I was good at school, but now I'm doing it as an adult. Am I going to find out that I'm not actually good at this or not? So that was quite challenging, and sort of, I feel like you see all of your BS come up while painting. So in a class, you can see your if you get frustrated that things are too slow, or it doesn't look perfect straight away, and I remember the art teacher always saying, trust the process, it will come together. Trust the process, it will come together. And me being like wanting to like race through it and just getting it done, and maybe not being so present, or berating myself midway through a picture, and it would all come together at the end, and I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'm not so bad at this after all. But I could have quit mid-drawing and been like really annoyed and over it. But you could definitely see what you were sort of going through at the time coming up for you. Some days it was a blissful experience. Some days I just loved it and it all flowed and it was easy and it was great. But other days it was more challenging. So you will know probably, you might not know what your suppressed gifts are, but you might. And the other part of it is your gift might be in your shadow. So it's a bit of a Carl Jung thing, the shadow story and the gifts that you might have in your repressed parts of you, or even from your experiences or traumas that you've been through, and your life experience, might actually be the key to your ultimate gifts. And the healing process and going through that for yourself might turn out to be your ultimate gift for yourself, for the planet. So I always think they call it turning your pain into power, your gifts into gold. Whatever resonates for you, there might be a thread in your story, in your what's happened to you, that there's gold in there for you to discover, and it might be through the process of healing that awakens all that. That definitely part of my story. Things that I've uncovered and healed are definitely part of what I can heal others with, because I get it. I can understand them. I empathize with them, and I really can feel it, and I can guide people through a lot of things because I've experienced a lot of stuff and I've worked through it and come out the other side. So that's part of it as well, is finding that gift in what your story is. Another kind of funny story that I will just tell you quickly is about when he says about reaching for them and they will come, and that you will rise to the occasion. So I am not a natural, it doesn't feel like anyway, speaker. I'd had very limited experience in public speaking. I think I spoke once at school in public assembly, maybe presented for like 5 minutes in a group project at university, and then a little bit in my job. I remember having to present on a new accounting standard, right, for maybe half an hour. So I hadn't had, before I quit my job, I didn't have tons of public speaking experience. And I could always, when I was doing it, always feel like this immense amount of anxiety and my voice wobbling and all this kind of stuff. And I've had that happen to me not as far away long ago as I would like as well. It depends on the occasion, right? So I decided quite early in my coaching, change in career. Well, actually, quite naively, I just thought I would be coaching people. I didn't think there would be sales and marketing and public speaking and social media. I actually just didn't realise all that was involved as well. But when I did realise all that was involved as well, I decided to take a couple of speaking courses because I thought that would be really important. The first one, though, I did for, weeks or whatever. But it all culminated with like a 10-minute talk at the end of this week or whatever. And on my first run through of this story, I cried. I couldn't barely even get the words out in front of this room of people that I'd known for a week now, and we'd all been working on our stories. And the guy was a bit of an a-hole and sort of shamed me for not having healed my story enough to share it. And I was like, oh, this is dreadful. It was really bad. But I had to pull it together for the next day because we were actually having them recorded as part of this course, and we had to redo it. So I actually went home and rewrote the whole thing and sort of took out a lot of the emotional stuff because I thought I can't be losing it again tomorrow. So I rewrote it and redid it and got through it the next day, but it was pretty awful. And then I did a couple of little local talks around Sydney. I magically got to talk at the IIN conference, which was fantastic. Pulled that out the bag, don't really know how. And then I did a couple of other little workshops for a couple of hours, maybe teaching EFT to 8 people that I already knew. And then I did another speaking little mini course. And again, that was probably 5 days and culminated with standing up in front of my mini group of 10 people and sharing my story in 2 minutes, right? So not an extensive amount of speaking experience. And then I had a coach who I was introduced to through very serendipitously. And he just happened to be sort of really getting into hosting events. That's not necessarily why I hired him as my coach. He told me he was going to be the masculine of my business, and that was enough to send me. So that's why I signed up with him. Didn't really work out like that. But anyway, Anyway, let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, so with his guidance and with I was running this sort of group program, and we'd offered a 1 day. I mentioned this somewhere in here before. We offered a 1 day as part of a group program, and then with his guidance, it sort of morphed into this 3 day conference with multiple speakers and sponsors, and you know, a big fancy hotel, and it was like a proper 3 day seminar conference thing. And it had only meant to be a sort of mastermind day for my current clients, and it just morphed. Anyway, these things happen, and I was in. I had booked everything, hotel, the speakers, I had all the stuff. We were sponsored by Bulletproof Coffee, and we had really cool gifts and all of this kind of stuff, right? I was flying team out from Australia to LA. I had all my team from the US coming in. I had clients who'd booked flights and were flying in from all over the world. And I still was, that previous speaking experience I'd explained was still my maximum amount of speaking that I had done publicly. And yet I was hosting this 3 day conference for 100 people, with some of my content being new. So some of the processes I'd never done before, and yet I still thought this was not the worst idea in the whole world. I don't really know how we got through it, but with a whole lot of luck, and I found my faith in God that weekend, let's be honest. So that I was built on naivety, a newfound faith, necessity, a whole bunch of money riding on it, a whole bunch of people's expectations, clients who'd booked and were coming, professionals, these speakers and other coaches in the industry. There was a lot of pressure on me in this thing. And I was like, should I run a 1 day event in Sydney and like practice and like, you know, with some friends or whatever, even just to run through some of this content. And I decided not to do that, because I thought if that doesn't go well, my confidence will be knocked even further. I thought, I'm just going to go for it. And I had sort of just decided that I would rise to the occasion of hosting and presenting most of this 3 days in front of this 100 people. And that's what I did. That event also required a whole bunch of surrender. And I had a little talk with myself the morning that we were moving into the event hotel. And I was like, if this is a complete disaster, if this doesn't go well, the sun will rise again and I will continue doing this work, right? I had to have this moment of complete surrender. If I make an idiot of myself, if everyone hates it, if nobody turns up, if whatever happens, I will carry on. And I let it go. I was like, I can't control this. I can't do any more than I have. I've taken care of almost every variable that there was available, but I've just got to let go now. And somehow I did get on that stage in front of those people that first morning. I did cry in my opening couple of minutes. Just so grateful to be there. So grateful all these people had turned up. So grateful it sort of all come together, at least in the beginning. And I pulled it together and I presented a really awesome 3 day event. So who knew? I didn't really know I was a speaker. I didn't know I was capable of that. I didn't know how it would go, but I basically was willing to risk everything, financially, reputation-wise, and everything else was on the line. And I did rise to the occasion. Actually, just to toot my own horn, my coach actually said day 2 was the best day of any event he'd ever attended to or run that he'd been at. And that was a massive nod to me, like okay, we're all right. We did it. We did good. And yeah, that's kind of hard to acknowledge, but I'm going to acknowledge myself for that. So yeah, you never know what you're capable of until you go ahead and just do it. And Ta-da! I became a speaker over that weekend. Anyway, what are your gifts that if you access them, you could have a quantum leap? And of course, that weekend, that speaking conference, quantum leaped my business. Absolutely quantum leaped it. And that's exactly the kind of formula I use to make that happen, right? Blind faith, focused on the end goal, surrendered, challenging myself, uncertainty, all of these bits that we have spoken about went into that to create a massive quantum leap. So it is absolutely possible. But yeah, it definitely took, it had to access something really deep down within myself to do that. Okay, so if psychic gifts is something, or intuitive gifts is something you would like to cultivate, you can definitely check out my Akashic Records course. I've got levels 1 and 2 available for immediate viewing, download. There's a bundle as well if you get 1 and 2. There's a third, but it is not available online as an immediate download at the moment, because I feel like it needs a bit more personal attention. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, let me know, or I will probably link it down below somewhere. And yeah, go for it. Good luck. Speak soon.